impacted those areas which we thought would never be impacted. Lawmakers, the residents of lawmakers, people who have a say in the civil society, ministers. The roadblock continues. Internally displaced people, their numbers have not come down. In this edition, we are going to take you through what happened in last couple of days. We will also tell you what happened on Thursday evening. Why a lawmaker's house was attacked. How can a lawmaker's house be attacked? There is another lawmaker who was brutally injured during a mob violence. So it clearly goes on to show that the violence in Manipur continues unabated. The ammunition and the arms which were looted, they have not come back in the number which was desired or expected. On this, I'll be joined by guests, but right now I'm joined by my colleague, our news editor, Verghese Abraham. But before that, the latest developments. It's sorry to say, but it is a fact that the peace is a distant reality in Manipur. It's a dream. All efforts to restore normalcy in the state has gone in vain. Violence and arson continues. And the latest is from Imphal. A mob torched Union Minister of State for External Affairs R.K. Ranjan Singh, resident at Konba in Imphal on Thursday late night. A mob of 1,000 people attacked the minister's house. He was, however, not present in the house. It's being said he was in Kerala. On the other hand, women-led groups have blocked at least 6 arterial roads in Manipur. I really don't need to remind the protest of women which took place post Manorama. And that protest hit national headlines. Women play an important role in Manipur's politics. Though women are important everywhere, but in Manipur's politics, they have a stronger role. Now, the pictures in front of you is that of the lawmaker's residence, Mr. Ranjan's residence. Imagine if a union minister's residence is not safe. And there's a live bite coming of Mr. Ranjan. Let's listen in.
Nobody is there means my mothers and brothers are there. And then what happened, the earlier attack was in early evening, that was 8:30. Yesterday was about 10:30. So everybody is relaxed, and even the security, we cannot come up. So that was happened.
Last 7-8 years, BJP made very huge inroads in Northeast. In last 7 years, BJP had made huge inroads in the Northeast sectors. They gained many political victories. And also in other places also, BJP is projecting these victories as a Northeast model. This time, the tensions and massacres disfiguring the central government image, especially in the Northeast sector.
I can't follow what you said.
But according to this, all incidents, whether it is affect our image of central government in Northeast area. Northeast area, we are already been
central government is responding promptly. Say, for example, extra security force timely sent it, and even the ex gratia was only 5 lakhs for the life loss, now increased to 10, and the special package for the restoration of those churches, the temples and houses and property loss, for that special package is given. And the central government is also constituted a peace committee to bring the normalized. Central government is the responding promptly.
Okay, this is second time you are
yes.
being attacked. So who is behind this attack? Because some reports suggest that a group of people from the community attacked your home.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you are also from that community.
That's why I said that mob.
mob.
Because they want to bring the peace. The peace, how to bring it, that is the situation now. But the committees are formed, slowly it will bring down. Of course, once violence started to control, it will take time. Not only me, many others also, because they thought that I'm a central government. Central government should stop violence. Do we have any process? In any state, you see a national home minister stayed 3 nights personally in the violence zone. Home minister is almost with the prime minister's present. So what is the difference? Prime minister is leading with the war and different domain.
After the Home Minister's visit, still the clash is going on.
Tensions are going.
Yeah, he will certainly visit. He will certainly visit.
Manipur still burning and the situation getting worse than more.
I think
Even after the
almost all
home
this situation, mass situation is controlled. Only spotted area, this is happening. The major happens is already controlled.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Singh's reaction coming from Kerala. Your comments on it. What went wrong?
Well, it looks like on 2 fronts. One, that the violence that is there, the state administration nor the central administration with all the force are able to control it. When a union minister's house is being attacked, it shows that the situation is out of control. It shows that a person who holds a position like Mr. R.K. Ranjan Singh is a target. And Kartikeji, there was a huge deployment of forces as well. Around 19 to 20 people were there. But the mobs who came in was 1,200 people. So, and they hurled petrol bombs from all the sides. So, even that security that was provided at the house of the person, maybe around 30 security, they were completely overwhelmed and overpowered by the 1,200 mobs, number of people who had surrounded the house, and they threw from all directions petrol bombs, and you can see the kind of destruction that is there. This in fact tells that the situation is out of control.
You're saying that this says that the situation is out of control. There are a couple of other reactions which have come in. You know, what is happening is that the northern state, apart from witnessing clashes, continuous clashes, the important arterial roads have been blocked. Now, if we look into the data, at least 100 people have been killed and 310 have been injured in the violence over a period of time. This is the rough statistics I'm giving you. Meanwhile, the Manipur government on Thursday has extended the ban on internet services till June 20th. So, the ban on internet service again is an issue. I'm very happy to inform that Dr. Thongolal Haukep, Assistant Professor, Center for Study of Law and Governance, has joined us. He's from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Yang Khom Jirangama, Associate Professor, Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, TIS, Guwahati, also joins us. And I'm also joined by Dr. Pauthing Haukep, Associate Professor, Center for Linguistics, and Major General Sanjay Meston. The first thing I'll do is just to take a reaction from General Meston. Sir, this is inexplicable that a sitting minister's residence was burned. Union Minister. Can you unmute yourself, General? I think I'm not audible to him. Let's listen into the bite first, and then we go back to our guests.
You see, asking for separate administration or not, that is the democratic right of anybody. Anybody can ask. But as a government, as a state, we have already said categorically that there will be no that kind of separate administration or anything. The state will be intact. That is the commitment of our government. And therefore, regarding bringing peace, just all the ministers and MLA day and night were contacting with the peoples. Without the involvement and understanding of the masses, we will not be able to bring permanent peace in the state. So, we are conducting, we are discussing in various levels. And the Honorable Governor, Our Excellency also has constituted a peace committee, and the work of the peace committee consultation with the members is going to be started. I hope with the support of the people of the state we will achieve peace at earliest. No, actually, it is everyone, most of the people are having some emotional feelings because someone has lost their near and dearest one, somebody has lost their property. So that kind of emotional, exaggeration is there. So immediately we cannot say everything will be okay. But you have seen with the efforts of the government, with the efforts of the masses involving the peoples and the media friends mainly, now it is reducing and coming normalcy, I should say. No, horrible taken, this arson was taken place. And along with that incident, 9 people were killed. It is very sad. I already told that, in the strongest town, the state government condemned it, and the state government have started bombing operations to find out the culprits, whoever. And I'm giving assurance to the people of the state, we will definitely book the culprit as per the law of the land.
My turn on the I L Dinesor Singh. I see Scott Commander. Masi ngang pung taraga mene pumanga tarama hoi bauti tadri. Ada moi se hoi maning da su lar achom lai. Sidagi petrom bamsi moi lakpasi ni lising mya lai. Mapan da khara lai re sidagi hana somde hana lang em maning om dagi. Kuch myang tong hare koina hare. Adu abu moi ya de ya ko lo yan tor hoi launa de. The moon lament like a moon petron bombe langakuni. Me the sing ama cutting in Gatra sing ama songa yenabada. Among us, I saw yum gari gypsy ani the Iswapio Nama. The Singh Kara, let's say.
Michael Madikana.
Oh, Pabigal, the Kuana, Nakana, Matung, the Moon Lambida, the Mutatana Kotanata with the Gi, Mangakana Raga, Lakunazu, Matang the Moy, Sakibaga, Aquina Musigi, Sing Manitoga, the Tulu Toraga, Nakandagia. Tulu Tower Kolaga, Quina, I see Mosa Kanda, which Yarika can never have get like the body. Don't never Nakana, honey.
Passport to Sacro.
Oh, passports.
So as I said, I'm joined by Yanghom Jilangama, Associate Professor, Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, TIS Guwahati, Dr. Pal Singh Haukip, Associate Professor, Center for Linguistics, JNU, and Major General Sanjay Meston. He doesn't need any introduction. He has been on my show a number of times. A very warm welcome to all of you. Mr. Yanghom, first to you, how is it possible that in an urban center like this, a minister's residence is burned, you have thousands of people who have come out, you don't have police there, local administration melts away when the crowd emerges. It cannot be that, there is a line called army and then you have a crowd which is like thousands of people and then you have 25 sentries. For me, it's unimaginable, sir, what happened. Mr. Yanghom Jilangamba, my question is to you. Can you unmute yourself?
I couldn't hear you properly.
I'm seeking your response on what happened in Manipur where a minister's residence was burned down.
Yes. It's a terrible, incident that has happened. We must also remember that this is not the first time. There have been other houses which have been vandalized, which have been burned. Manipur government minister, Mrs. Kipgen's house was also burned down. There seems to be an attack on important political leaders, for whatever the reason may be. it seems that people feel they're not doing enough to be able to control the situation in Manipur. Right? It seems that people are taking out their anger, to these elected representatives. So situation seems to be still quite tense, at least in certain pockets. Even though the chief minister said
Mr.
that.
Mr. Yangham, just stay for a minute. Mr. Ranjan is speaking, whose house was burnt.
Pray to God also not to happen again. And this is the second time. So now I feel that in first time I anyhow convinced them, and security protected the first issue. And that was in the early evening. And this time, yesterday, it was in the late night, about 10:30. And everything is normal. Suddenly crowds of people came and attacked, I was told. Then even the house is fired. The fire brigades cannot enter the area. The people block it. I do not know why, for what reason they are attacking to me. There is no reason. In all the process, I am preparing to bring the peace, negotiating the central, my senior ministers and colleagues to bring the normalcy in the state. And in the meanwhile, this kind of unwanted incident has happened. Now I feel that if my sons and daughters and my family happens to be here, that burning and throwing of petrol, it seems it to be attempt to my life also. Third time it may be attempt. But this I would like to focus that the law and order condition in the state of Manipur is totally failure. The existing government could not maintain this, despite the central government has sent a lot of the protections and rapid action force. I do not know how the state mechanism is failure, that I feel like that.
Sir, are you informed in Home Department?
Yeah, Home Department, I already informed.
Informed the Prime Minister?
Yeah, even the Amit Shahji is called me, and I said that I was out of station. I am here in the political programs. I have to be visited to that place, but because of this incident, all my moods and everything has disturbed, so I cancel it, and I request the people of the Kosi for excuse me, sudden cancellation of the program. But next, another days I will fix it, and I will certainly meet the people of Kosi.
Sir, you are from Imphal. Sir, you are from Imphal, Manipur.
You are from Imphal.
Yeah, I am proper Imphal.
Current situation in your home and hometown.
Current situation in hometown.
Daytime is a normalcy. Curfew, relax. Then during the curfew, I do not know how. That's why I said that law and order situation is totally failed. You see, during the curfew period, huge crowd come in just like a mob, and they attack, throwing petrols and burning the house and vehicles and all the properties like this. So that shows that the state art of the law and order is totally failure.
So you have cancelled all programs today?
Have you cancelled all programs?
Yeah, I cancel. I will back it to Delhi. So.
I think this is a very important bite. I will play out this bite again because this is the first open criticism of Biren Singh's government by the central minister. I will play this bite for you again. This is a very big political development which is taking place in Manipur. Mr. Yangham, first open criticism of the sitting government by a union minister. Mr. Yangham.
But I think, we don't, I don't want to speculate on what is happening there. What we must focus on is that there's a huge number of paramilitary forces, the army, the rapid action force. I don't quite understand what they are doing if they're not able to control the situation in the heart of the city, right? So rather than speculating on the internal dynamics which may or may not exist within the ruling political party, I think we must ask our questions, focus on what are they doing, especially the paramilitary forces, if they are not able to control the situation. And I'm sure you must have heard that Rapid Action Force has also come into the limelight in the recent past because they were caught attempting to incite violence. So we don't know what's happening there.
Okay, Mr. Haukip, your comments on Mr. Sinha's comment, and then I'll go to General Meston. Your comment.
Okay,
you
so
heard the union minister say this thrice. The government, it has failed. I've been doing this show for 40 continuous days, inviting guests on Manipur 2 hours every day, and especially inviting people from Manipur and people of Manipur, so that the perspective remains rooted to the ground, local, unbiased, unpontificated from Delhi. And this is the first time actually I have heard a sitting MP or a union minister speak like that. Mr. Haukip.
Is the question to me?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, the question is for you.
So despite the goodwill which has come from some of the so-called liberal concerned citizens, the situation on the ground is spiraling out of control, and this has been very, very worrying, especially during the past few days since Kamenglong incident and post which they were burning down of MLA house, including our MP house. So this is a very, very grave situation. So now the question is, despite all the goodwill which have come from concerned citizens across India and also from the state of Manipur on both sides. So that on both sides, we have been gathering information that there is a lot of goodwill to bring back some kind of normalcy. But despite all these attempts, so the violence is not abating, and rather it is on the aggravating sides. So what does this show? So ultimately, for my opening comments, I would like to somehow explain who are these mobs. So this mob, undefined mob, is something that we need to explain, and which I will not do at the moment. But as an opening remark, it's very, very saddening to see the state where we all belong to has been inflamed, and then there's multiple loss of properties, life every day. So today's story is not the end. So we are waiting for more war stories. So now what is the way forward? The way forward is that there is an aggressor, and then the people upon whom the aggressor has committed the aggression. So unless this aggression has to be stopped, somehow, somewhere, we need to stop this aggression. And unless we stop this aggression, I don't see any kind of a situation where normalcy will return. Rather, we'll be seeing more of bloodshed in future. I'm sorry to use strong language, but this is the only way in which we can describe the undescribable, horrendous, undesirable situation in which we are placed. And not only people of Manipur, especially all concerned citizens, generals, and we have been hearing stories from academicians, from people from all walks of life. This has never happened in the history of Manipur. I've been as a citizen of Manipur. We love our state so much. We love our people. And why this has spiraled out of this control, I think this has to be looked seriously. And the existing law and order situation with surplus of central forces of 60,000 is not enough. So what should be done at this level is the main challenge. And as a opening remark, I would like to put this on point and later deliberates on further.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's going to be a long conversation. A very warm welcome to Dr. Thongalal Haukip. But before I come to you, General Meston, I won't use the word unbelievable. You must have seen many more things like that. But this is very worrisome. A union minister in Kerala, he spoke yesterday. He addressed the Manipur of yesterday. And then the violence took place, the big picture. I ran his bite. It was a 10-minute press conference. And if you saw the visual, sir, the burnt cars are not civilian. They are police. They are paramilitary jeeps. They actually burned the security apparatus also. General Saab.
Yeah, Kartikeya, good morning.
Morning, sir. Morning, sir. Your comments on it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can't actually hear you. Your sound is totally gone. It was coming fine.
I'm saying your comments on it, sir.
Yeah, my comments are very clear. Kartikeya, day before, during your discussion with you, I had mentioned very clearly, as a military man, that there has to be a directive that violence shall and must cease by so-and-so date, so-and-so time. No, that is not happening. There is no doubt. And not only the minister's house, many normal civilians, their lives have been lost. Their houses have been burnt from so many days. And from both the communities, they have been affected. Many army officers, including Jawans and junior commissioned officers, their houses have got burnt. Now it has taken a big focus because the MP's house has been burnt. And I'm glad, I must state, that the MP has been very candid, and you yourself stating that he has clearly given the blame to the state administration, because from day one, or I would say the third day, I was surprised as a military man that how police armories have been raided. More than 1,000 weapons were taken away. Is this the standard of a state police? Who's governing them? Who's responsible? And I think the MP also stated one thing very, very clearly, that the administration has failed despite a support by centre in terms of inducting large number of security forces. And yet the situation continues the way it is. And I tend to agree with both the earlier speakers that the situation is now going to spiral out of control, and I do not know where is it going to end. So firstly, the blame has been highlighted very, very clearly. I also heard the portion of the clip which you showed of the Chief Minister addressing, and he's again quite vocal that peace must prevail. That peace everyone wants, and we are hearing about these statements from the second or third day of the violence. But why the peace is not being enforced? We have to enforce peace, not talk peace. Enforcement is lacking, and first there has to be a political will at the state administration. I'm glad the center is supporting, and there is something amiss over there, and that is why the distrust or the mistrust amongst the people is manifesting in destruction of property and killing people. It's just spiraling out of control. And if you recollect, the CDS had mentioned on his remarks on this issue, which had just erupted about a month back, that this is not a counter-insurgency problem, it is a different problem. And that is exactly now what is happening. It's a different problem. But now my worries are, I have great apprehensions. The way things are spiraling out of control, let me now today state, it can now take a different dimension. Let us now be prepared for counter-insurgency state. It is going to happen because it is unabated, there is mistrust, and therefore it can now take that form where China is going to support. China, as it is I mentioned, is going to support all militant groups, whether they are of this community or the other community. All militant, there are militant groups of both the communities. We all know these facts. So it is going to continue. And therefore, now Mizoram, Nagaland, they are bordering. And this is all the hill tracts area. I'm only worried because way back in 1982, when I was deployed there, I've seen the peak of insurgency there. And so much of armed forces are required. Does today India want that we start depleting our forces from China border and start inducting it into Manipur, Nagaland and Mizoram if the situation goes out of control? Now is the time to take stock of the situation. We need to control and finish this violence forthwith. Otherwise, it is going to take a counter-insurgency dimension, maybe within a month or so. There must be a lot of spade work going on between various organizations. militant organizations, the PLA, that is the Chinese PLA, not the Manipur, the Methi PLA. They would now be totally getting involved, the Chinese PLA. And I mentioned the Myanmarese army is very corrupt. They are the conduit. So things can go out of control. And probably it is a wake-up call for the nation, for Manipur, that the MP's house has been burned. This is a wake-up call. It's a timely message for all of us to unite and fight this problem. Otherwise, we are in for a trouble. The way JNK had problems, we cannot afford to have counter-insurgency problems manifesting in our border area, because that is at the cost of depleting forces from the line of actual control, or I would say the international border with Pakistan or the LAC with China. That is not to our national and strategic advantage. So I have been quite forthright and quite blunt about it. As a true nationalist, as a true Indian, I have given my point of view, and I tend to agree with Dr. Ranjan. That is a total failure of the state administration, despite induction of security forces and support being given by the center. So I think that is what the issue has emerged after the statement, and probably it will have political ramifications, because he also mentioned that the Honorable Home Minister has been stated, and I think they may like to, they may perhaps take a review. As it is, there have been called since many days to, impose president rule by one community and the other wants it. So I think that mistrust is so much. So the center has to now take a call as to how to address this issue politically. The solution is politically. The flare-up has been political. The solution also lies in some political reforms. Some now center has to get involved. Our Prime Minister is today, just in the next week, going to be in United States. This issue should not embarrass India. And before that, I think we need to take some firm steps to control this violence. Maybe some strong political measures are required, because it's got a political solution, not a military solution. Military can only suppress, but it requires a political solution to address the fears of both the communities, address the mistrust of both the communities, and that is what has to be addressed, rather than allowing it to spiral out of control and allow hooligans of both the communities to take law into their own hands. Thank you, Karthik.
Thank you so much. But you raised two very important points. One, that it's not a counter-insurgency problem; it's a different problem. And who are these mobs? Dr. Thongolal Hauke, who are these mobs? And when the General Saab said, Dr. Hauke, it's not a counter-insurgency problem; it's a different problem. How would you frame it?
Peace has been elusive in Manipur for the past 45 days, and we have been, talking from day two that there has been, some sort of mob mentality that's going on, and there is a riot going on, creating mayhem for the last so many days now. And from the first day itself, I have been observing and commenting on the day two itself that this is a kind of situation very different from the previous ones. And we have prescribed from the day two that, the law and order mechanism is out of control, and president's rule has to be imposed. And, till today, there's no talk about those measures. And the central government has been so much reluctant to impose president's rule, despite knowing fully well that the law and order situation has been collapsed totally for the last 45 days. And if you look into the visit of the Union Home Minister 15 days ago, he has asked both sides to maintain calm and peace, and he will bring out certain mechanisms, political or any thing else, after 15 days. So it's been 15 days now, and for the last 15 days, looking into the request of the Home Minister, the Kuki side has been maintaining calm and peace. There's no offensive or there's no any kind of problem created by the group, and that is manifested in all this violence in the past 15 days. So basically, if peace has been maintained by the other group, why is it happening? Who are the perpetrators? There has to be identified, and that there has to be control. And after 15 days, the Union Home Minister has to come out of his house or visit the state again and talk with people, and what could be the solution that has to be arrived at. I have been sharing panel with Minister Ranjan for 2 times in the last month to bring about or to calm down people, and we have shared so much. And it's very unfortunate to hear yesterday that his house has been burned down. And who knows, today or tomorrow, my house could be burned down, razed to the ground in Manipur. So that is the situation. How do you control the mob? So it's only through the president's rule that such kind of measures can be carried out. So I appeal to the union government that the situation has to be controlled by them. Right now, otherwise it could spiral into another bigger confrontation, bigger kind of involvement of people surrounding the state. So it's a very critical situation, and the Union Home Ministry, who have been keeping a watch on this state without taking concrete measures, has to come out, and the Prime Minister has to start speaking out about the problem and acknowledge that there is a failure of the central government also in terms of controlling the situation.
Okay, my colleague Varghese has a question.
Well, when all of them were describing about the mob, so I was going through the report in the Hindu where they spoke to a source, and they were talking about how women are being made to take part in these agitations right in the front, and how they're using the women. And I think the general also will be able to give an insight into it. How both the communities are using women to create blockades. So if the mob wants to target something, first the women come and block the arterial roads. Then the mob targets the village because they are stopping any paramilitary forces or the police from going to the place which is affected. They have a shortage of women contingent among the paramilitary forces, and because of that, most of these soldiers can't go forward. They have to go on foot. The trucks are stopped. They have to circumvent the women and go, because they can't directly engage with them because they don't have women soldiers as much as many contingents that we have. So women are now strategically being used by both the mobs, one in the hills to stop essential supplies to going into the valley, and from the valley to stop any sort of help coming to protect the people in the hills. So it's both ways. Women are being used as shields right now. This is quite shocking. I think a lot of people are not, especially from our guests, are not actually explaining why women are being put forward as shields in this.
Okay, I'll put this question to Yenghom, our Associate Professor, Center for Peace and Conflict Studies. Mr. Yenghom Jilangamba, please can you take this question? Mr. Yenghom, can you take the question?
Well, I'm not quite sure whether women being used is the right way to. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. I think there's a bit of an audio problem. There's a bit of an audio problem from you. Dr. Pauthing Haukip, can you take this question?
Yeah, so as the situation arises now, the mob mentality is something which is very, very worrying. Now, in my previous question, I asked a typical statement, who are these mobs? So in order to understand this mob, please bear me out. I have to go a bit back and then a bit ahead in order to explain this phenomenon. So now currently, unlike in the past, now women folk, especially from the plains and also and other areas, they are not spared. Everyone has, in a sense, lost their common sense. So now even human common sense or the spirit of humanness is no longer expected in this kind of mob. So now my question is why?
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do not believe that this is just a mob. This seems to be a planned way of putting things in place. You have the women put in front, stalling the entire security forces from reaching places that they require to be reaching on time. They are stalled by the women, and then the time taken to stall them is used as an advantage by a group, a large group, like 1,000 group, and then they attack the target that they want to attack.
Okay.
This is what is happening.
Okay, so please continue. Please.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me complete this point. So the mob is the position. Now the mob has to be controlled. Unless we control this mob, we are not going to see any kind of peace, any kind of normalcy. So this mob has to be controlled. And we are all aware, I am the first participant of this show, but all of us are aware by now that these mobs, many of them have guns in their hands. So when you have guns in their hands, sophisticated and with full impunity, so they have all the sort of courage to go ahead. And this is a very disturbing situation, and that's why I describe it as a kind of undescribable sin that Manipur has seen in the past. So to bring this thing into perspective, please bear me out for a minute. So Manipur, as we know, has 3 ethnic communities. One is the Meiteis, one is the different Naga tribes, and then we have the different Kukichin groups. So now, for the past many generations, these tribes often had wars among itself, periodical wars are there, and also there was also a war between the Kukis and the Nagas for 3 years. But this war, which we describe is alien to Manipur, it has never happened in the face of Manipur, and this is very disturbing. So Manipur and who are the Manipuris and the Kukis have to be identified. Who are these Manipuris? Who are the Kukis? So many of my colleagues and other academicians have also already narrated. So Manipuri and the Kukis ethno-linguistically, so they have some common ground. So they have a common ground, that means they speak the same sort of what you could Tibeto-Burman language, and within that Kuki and Meiteis belong to some very close group. There was the past kind of linguistic relationship or ethno-linguistic relationship they had. So that was the binding point, and even during historical times, the Kukis and Meiteis has a lot of ties. But in recent past, after especially in the few recent years, after the installment of this BJP second phase has been installed, there has been an unusual search of what I call this mob. The question that I'm going to do, this mob. So these mob, how do they originate? So these mobs were never there before the few years back. So these mobs suddenly surfaced. So who propagated, who formed this one? These were never questioned. Now these mobs, without any sort of what you call looking back into the history, the ties that people have, and also the kind of economic ties that both the hills and the valley have. So the Manipuris are also equally benefiting from all economic progress, and also the Kukis are also benefiting. So especially in agricultural products, all agricultural products has to be sold to the plain, and then that's how market has been going. Now, despite all these things, this new group which has searched, which people call them by the name Arangboy Tengol or Meitei Lipun, these are what I call warring elements. Now, what is more worrying is that their weapons are in their hands. And now, as of today, the Kukis have been very on the offensive side, not on the offensive side, or they are always on the protective side. They have never gone on offensive side. So these mobs in thousands, they have gone on the offensive side, burning down numbers of hundreds of Kuki villages. So in the process, when a mob of such nature goes in thousands, then the casualty also can be very fatal. I'm not even encouraging the fatality. I'm very sad to hear the kind of death on the ground. This is very disturbing. We feel so sorry for the loss of life, whether it is the Kukis or the Nagas. But when a mob of this number go on rampage, so the casualty has to be expected, whether on which side, but casualty is a must. So therefore, this mob has to be controlled.
Okay.
How will this be done militarily? How will be this done politically? Is something that we have to negotiate. Unless this mob is going to be controlled, then the problem of Manipur will never end, and we are going to see more and more violence in future.
Dr. Haukip, before I go to General Meston, then I go to Yenghom Jalangama, whose voice we could not hear, and then to Dr. Thongolal. Let us listen to the viewers who have just joined us to the first bite of Chief Minister Biren Singh, and then the subsequent bite of the Union Minister, Mr. Ranjan. Full bite of Biren Singh and full bite of Mr. Ranjan.
You see, asking for separate administration or not, that is the democratic right of anybody can ask. But as a government, at a state, we have already said categorically that there will be no that kind of separate administration or anything. The state will be intact. That is the commitment of our government. And therefore, regarding bringing peace, just all the ministers and MLA day and night were contacting with the peoples. Without the involvement and understanding of the masses, we will not be able to bring permanent peace in the state. So we are contacting, we are discussing in various levels. And the Honorable Governor, Our Excellency also has constituted a peace committee, and the work of the peace committee consultation with the members is going to be started. Now I hope with the support of the people of the state, we will achieve peace at earliest. No, actually, it is everyone, most of the people are having some emotional feelings because someone has lost their near and dearest one, somebody has lost their property. So that kind of emotional, exaggeration is there. So immediately we cannot say everything will be okay. But you have seen with the efforts of the government, with the efforts of the masses, involving the peoples and the media friends mainly, now it is reducing and coming normalcy, I should say. No, horrible taken, this arson was taken place, and along with that incident, 9 people were killed. It is very sad. I already told that, in the strongest town, the state government condemned it, and the state government have started bombing operations to find out the culprits, whoever. And I'm giving assurance to the people of the state, we will definitely book the culprit as per the law of the land.
The reaction is like that, my own sweat, with prayer I construct the house, but if someone try to vandalize and demolish, I feel shocked. And I never expect such kind of attitudes and activities from my fellow citizens of the state. And I pray to God also not to happen again. And this is the second time. Now I feel that in first time I anyhow convinced them, and security protected the first issue. And that was in the early evening. And this time, yesterday, it was in the late night, about 10:30. And everything is normal. Suddenly crowds of people came and attacked. I was told. Then even the house is fire. The fire brigades cannot enter the area. The people block it. I do not know why, for what reason they are attacking to me. There is no reason. In all the process, I am preparing to bring the peace, negotiating the central, my senior ministers and colleagues to bring the normalcy in the state. And in the meanwhile, this kind of unwanted incident has happened. Now I feel that if my sons and daughters and my family happens to be here, that burning and throwing of petrol, it seems it to be attempt to my life also. Third time it may be attempt. But this I would like to focus that the law and order condition in the state of Manipur is totally failure. The existing government could not maintain this, despite the central government has sent a lot of the protections and rapid action force. I do not know how the state mechanism is failure, that I feel like that. Even Amit Shahji is called me, and I said that I was out of station. I am here in the political programs. I have to be visit to that place, but because of this incident, all my moods and everything has disturbed, so I cancel it, and I request the people of the Kosi for excuse me, sudden cancellation of the program. But next, another days I will fix it, and I will certainly meet the people of Kosi. Then make an amicable solution. Let us move forward for development.
Sir, do you think any religious extremists are behind the attack?
No, not at all. Sometimes some vested interested group wanted to use this religious card, but we totally against it, and there is no religious.
So how can you say that? Because more than 100 churches have been attacked during this
More,
violence.
if you say like that, more than many temples are also demolished. So the mob violence, mob violence, you cannot identify it, whether this is church or this is temple. Everything is there. Demolished. More than 70,000 the peoples were displaced. This is not on the basis of caste, creed or religions. It's a mob.
Does BJP think that religious conversation behind this attack?
No, I don't think so. Because I already told you that I was working for the last 30, 40 years for the ethnic harmony and self-respecting each others. There is no religious issue. We are free. India, is secular. Anybody can, any community can have their own faith. There is no restriction, not on that base. But this is unwanted and this is unguarded incident.
So any casualties? Any casualties in your all your family members?
Yesterday's incident, some of my houses were burned down. That is my own sweat, earning money. I am not a corrupt. Under the political regime of the Prime Minister, there was no one is corrupt in this regime. So I do not know, this is also mob. If it is a religion, I am a Hindu. Attackers was Hindu. It is not religions. It's clearly proved that. So this is a mob.
Your family members are also
Any casualty in your family member?
Now at the moment, luckily on that very night, my children are just arrived to Delhi. Otherwise, see, this is the second attempt. First attempt, I was there. So I requested the security advisor for prompt action. But yesterday nobody is there. And then about nobody is there means my mothers and brothers are there. And then what happened, the earlier attack was in early evening, that was 8:30. Yesterday was about 10:30. So everybody is relaxed, and even the security, we cannot come up. So that was happened.
Last 7-8 years, BJP made a very huge inroads in Northeast. In last 7 years, BJP had made huge inroads in the Northeast sectors. They gained many political victories. And also in other places also, BJP is projecting these victories as a Northeast model. This time, the tensions and massacres disfiguring the central government image, especially in the Northeast sector.
I can't follow what you said.
Yeah, but according to this, all incidents, whether it is affect our image of central government in Northeast area. Northeast area, we already been.
Central government is responding promptly. Say, for example, extra security force timely sent it, and even the ex gratia was only 5 lakhs for the life loss. Now increased to 10, and the special package for restoration of those churches, the temples and houses and property loss, for that special package is given. And the central government is also constituted a peace committee to bring the normalized. Central government is the responding promptly. In any state, you see national home minister stayed 3 nights personally in the violence zone. Home minister is almost with the prime minister's present. So what is the difference? Prime minister is leading with the war and different domain.
After the home minister's visit, still the clash is going on.
Yeah, he will certainly visit. He will certainly visit.
Manipur is still burning and the situation getting worse than more.
I think almost all the situation, mass situation is controlled. Only spotted area, this is happening. The major happens is already controlled.
So let me go back. Let me go back to Mr. Yangam. Mr. Yenghom, you're on phone line with us. Am I audible to you now? Mr. Yenghom.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Can I ask my question? I think I'll go to General Sanjay Meston. So when you said the word that this is not a counter-insurgency problem, it's a different problem. What did you mean? You know, this is one answer I would like to have from you.
Yeah, very pinpointed answer. It is a political problem, not a CI problem, and it is also not a ethnicity problem the way it has been built. Sorry, a religious problem. And I think I must compliment Dr. Ranjan. Frankly, I have not been following him, but today after hearing him, he appears to be very matured. And despite a setback, he was not at all emotional and sentimental. I think he was playing the true leader, which a national leader should be. His maturity was of a very high order. In fact, he needs a compliment for that. And he is very, very clear that it is not a religious problem, because a lot of people have also started percolating this as a religious problem. And he has stated that churches and temples have been burned. So it is striking both the communities, and therefore it is basically the mistrust among people that is a problem, and that has been just given a flame of fire because of some political overtures, and political solution has to be there. In fact, I would go to the extent of saying that an all-party delegation, because no, all political parties have to get involved. It is not only a particular party in this country who has to take on this. Yes, it is the basic problem is of the center, but now it has taken such dimension. Matured ministers, matured politicians of all political parties, in fact, they are the ones who can go and heal the local wounds of the people. And that is what is going to bring the people together, because I always keep stating I have been in this area. My Indian Army service started from here. I was in a crew, Lima Kong, Khama, all these areas, Imphal. And the people were so nice. In fact, I found them one of the best people. I've also been in Kashmir, and I could say that the people here just stood out. There was no such problems. Yes, this narrative is being built up by someone of, the ethnicity divide. That has to be curbed. And who builds narratives? It is some local politicians because of their vested interest. Sometimes, new things are projected. That day I mentioned about the drugs. Today, who's not involved in drugs in Manipur? I can state it very clearly, of any community, all politicians, everyone gains from this drug deals, etc., this drug trade. So it is not that we blame only one community, and I'm very glad this minister has not blamed any community. This is a problem which has to be resolved politically. One question was raised by Mr. Varghese of the women blockade. I would like to answer that. See, women and children have always been used in many places in the world, and including in India, in Kashmir. Yes, they can block certain routes for supplies, etc., but they cannot hinder the movement of security forces. Security forces, as an infantryman, the infantry is versatile, they are flexible, they are adaptable, they can operate in any area unhindered. So what I'm trying to say is, even if a blockage is there, the terrain permits us to take any route. Always we don't have to go by vehicles. Infantry is foot-bound. So I cannot understand how soldiers, some of them have been just shown, and they are calling that they appear to be lost and cannot address a situation. Infantry man cannot be ever blocked. All obstacles are overcome. The Manipuri ladies cannot today blockade the whole of all the roads and everything. It is only few areas they would have blocked. Get down from the vehicle, just short-circuit it, and just go on foot. And not only that, you have the local police, the local Assam Rifles deployed in villages. There are posts. I've been to these posts. So they are also in the hinterland. And this minister's house, which has been burnt in Kongpa, Kongba, in fact, this is in the heart of Manipur city, I would say. There's a huge built-up area, so I can't imagine there's not a single security forces and Women, yes, women can only block certain roads
Okay.
to prevent logistic supplies.
Okay.
Soldiers cannot be prevented from their operation. They have got wherewithal. They just dismount. They are, as it is, supposed to operate in foot. I have operated on foot right in the area of Ukhrul. We used to walk to every places. We don't use vehicles, including in Kashmir. I have done 4 tenures.
You know,
Vehicles are
General Bester, you know, this brings me to another issue, and I would like Dr. Pauthang Haukip to come on this. You know, Dr. Haukip, and then I'll go to Dr. Thongalalji. You know, when we talk about CI issues, we know there's one thing which is happening last 7-8 years. It's internet ban. You know, for 1,000 people to gather when the state is under internet suspension, I think fundamentally the administration has failed. I mean, you've got police in place, you've got administration in place, you've got a complete net structure down, and still people can gather.
Yeah, despite internet ban, people can still come together in large number. And especially this is not very difficult if you live in the valley, because valley is a very congested area. People live in close localities. So gathering, even if internet is banned or even if phone lines are banned, people somehow will manage to gather in the plain. So it is very easy for the people to gather and form a group and then to execute whatever strike or dana that they wanted to put forth. So now we have been stressing on the point of how to bring about peace. So to my mind, peace, not the precondition for peace is that some amount of normalcy has to return to the state. And to be able to do this, I have no other solution. The only thing that come to my mind is that this mob has to be contained. By how it is contained, that is has to be decided, especially by the central government. Now the state government is completely seen as inactive. As in the words of our honorable MP Ranjan Singh, he has also already described. I don't need to reiterate. So there's a complete failure of the state government, which has led to this crisis, which we thought would end within a day or two. So we were in the impression initially that this incident, after its upheaval in the Imphal Valley, we were very hopeful that at least it will not spread beyond Imphal. Now 40 days has gone by, and we see more and more violence, and the scale and the magnitude is higher and higher and higher. So what to be done? What should we do? Now we don't have faith in the state, the MPs have lost faith in the state administration. No one, including the citizens, have lost. The cookies have long time lost their faith on the state administration. So now the only way is to bring back what is called some sort of precedent rule, where there is a sort of rule can be imposed by the central rule system. Now, Major General has raised something. Now we are discussing too much on the issue of violence. So now General Major has issued who created this ethnic hatred. This is the question I would like to dwell a bit. So as far as I understand, or we understand, Cookies, Meiteis, but even in the hill people, common people, of course, forgetting about the politicians. Politicians, we put them in different levels. People-to-people relationship of Manipur has been ever good, despite whatever small violence we have seen in the past, but it's very good. So the most cookies are able to speak Manipuri. We love to speak Manipuri language. And in one of our many academic gatherings, I said one of the factors for the contribution of Manipuri, growth of Manipuri culture and Manipuri language is we the tribals. Because we the tribals love to speak their language and we love to associate themselves. So from people to people, there is no violence at all. And I have many Meiteis friends all over, and so do Meitei also have friends among the cookies. So there is no doubt among people to people. Now the question is, who is fueling this violence? And who is supporting this mob is the question. So one thing that is undisputedly, day one or prior to the happening of May 3rd, there is what I describe it as what you call hate language. So hate language has been propagated without control, especially from the so-called people who are in the highest political power. This we could see, we can revisit back into our different channels, and they are there for everyone to see. So this has been doing rounds and rounds. Initially, we thought that, okay, in a very ethnic and polarized and kind of multilingual, multicultural state like Manipur, this happens. So we thought that this was some kind of temporal kind of things that people do just to get some political mileage. But now it turns out that this so-called hatred language, which has been done was purposely done. So now I come to the conclusion that what I earlier thought was some kind of out of mind thinking, or sometimes as human being, we tend to speak of something out of our control. So there was the thought that we have, but now it has come to light that some of the hate languages that were used, to me it appears that they were purposely done, and this is the result that we have seen today. So now the question is, unless we find out why these people have been using these hate languages, were there any motive to these languages? And as a language expert, I have repeatedly mentioning language heals and language kills. So now the question is, I see, and there's a lot of what you call so-called fake news on the internet everywhere in the public domain. So most of this foiling has been created by fake news, and I have been again and again requesting my fraternity everywhere around, let us not indulge in hate language. So because language is the fake news that we created can spiral out of control, and this is what exactly we have seen. And this usage of hate language was propagated towards the cookies, and I thought that fine, as I said, this could have been done at a certain point of time, but it has become consistent, and some of the points that we also raised again and again were this. Okay, cookies are also one of the poppy cultivators, so are other poppy cultivators. So if you look at the poppy cultivation at large, this is an international nexus. General knows more than we do. And in fact, the least people who get benefited are the cultivators. But still then, we cookie as a society condemn this cultivation. I've been a rampant, I've been fervent, supporter of erasing this public cultivation. But if you look at economically, forgetting about whether this is legal or illegal, if you forget for the moment and look at the profit and who profited. So legal poppy cultivation involves lots of manuals, lots of salts, tons and tons of salt. Who supplies this? These are all supplied from by the valley people. So the valley people, everybody is all engaged in some.
I think that's a point, Dr. Pautang Haukep, I completely agree that when it comes to this trade, more than the community, it's the people. The drug lords are involved, and to associate a practice with a community, it's it's like a pre-colonial practice, criminal tribes or denotified tribes which engage in criminal activities. That's a very colonial sort of way of categorizing tribes, nomadic tribes and people in the subcontinent. But coming back to the discussion, and Dr. Thongalal Haukep, before I go to General Meston, what is perplexing me is, what is really perplexing me is that there is no fight back from the administration. You see, apart from press conference, apart from the fact that you have those statements, there is no fight back. I don't see lawmakers on the street. My 42 days of the coverage, I don't see lawmakers on the street. Lawmakers are even refusing to come on TV. It's like people have won elections but abdicated the duty to keep Manipur in peace when situation demands them to be on the ground. Why has that happened, Dr. Thonglalji?
Scholars from political science would say that this is a pure organized riot system. Many scholars from political science have done studies in India and other parts, and this has been very systematic. So, we cannot deal with these mobs who are causing riots with certain, simple strategy. It involves a lot of amount of energy to quell down the, situation. That is why looking into the situation from day one, we have been prescribing that there is total law and order situation, and this organized mob, organized riot system has to be controlled through certain systems, and nobody has been listening from day one. We could have prevented lots of people. Today, Minister Ranjan house has been raised, degenerated, and that caught certain attention.
Amaj,
But what about the
129.
thousands of people whose house has been razed to the ground? They don't have even a roof to stay right now. Many people are in the jungles praying for some help to come. Why can't we think about that? Many children are born during this conflict. There are kids who are wanting, some sort of food and others. So we have created this situation by ourselves, especially by the central government. So the ball is in the court of the central government to stop this fire, to stop this organized riot system. Unless the central government intervenes, I think there is no stopping, and this will continue. And we have been seeing that for the last 15 days, as the Home Minister has promised, on the other side, there is calm, there is no offensive, and who controls, who perpetrate violence? There has to be seen carefully, and action has to be taken. We have discussed about how women have been shielding, the paramilitary forces and others, and that strategies. Maybe if from the other side also it happens, then it has to be identified properly and controlled by the neutral forces. So we need to look carefully into all this, how things unfolded and how much things are in the hands of the central government. And in the words of Minister Ranjan also, he said that there is total law and order collapse in the state. Now we are entering into the stage 2 of this violence. Unless this has been controlled on time, I think it will be too late. Everything in Manipur will be razed to the ground. Every houses would be burned. Either people would stay in refugee camps or maxit camps in the coming months. So it's a very serious situation. We are entering the stage 2 of this violence and conflict, and the center has to act now. That's what I feel.
Okay, you're saying the center needs to act now. I'll give one last shot to get in touch, to get view of Dr. Yenghom Jilangamba. Dr. Yenghom?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible now. So my question to you, sir, why has the administration melted away? Previous speakers had spoken about who are these mobs? How come there is no resistance from the state administration? What is your understanding of the situation on ground? Because every man or woman cannot be controlled.
Yes, it is true that it seems to, the situation seems to be, going out of control, especially in the Imphal area. How to resolve that would take us, to a different direction. But what I understand is that the sort of ongoing fighting which is still going on in the foothill areas, people are responding to that crisis, right? So people feel vulnerable, because they live in these outlying areas of the valley, and in response, people in Imphal, they are venting out their anger, their frustration on elected representatives, that they're doing nothing, in order to control this violence which is happening in the foothill areas. I think that's an important point for us to keep in mind. The second point is that there have been a lot of demands of how to resolve this conflict. One of the demand is for the president's rule that I heard, some of the speakers mention, and that's been a demand from certain quarters for a long period of time now since the violence started. But we must also remember that at the moment, Article 355 seems to be in operation because, the unified, under the sort of the unified command, it is not the elected representative, the chief minister, but Mr. Kuldeep Singh, who is sort of, who seems to be in charge of the security issues, and the governor as the head of that unified command. Which means that I'm not quite sure how much the elected representatives are actually able to have a say in controlling the law and order situation, which means that the center has to now take a proactive role in order to give a clear message that violence has to come to an end, because it is under their control technically, right? So it seems that there is no clear message from the center on how to control the law and order situation, right? And until that happens, people's anger will continue to exist, right? These are women and men, young men and women who feel vulnerable. So we need to also then reach out as intellectuals, as leaders of the civil society groups, as women's groups, as students groups. We need to also reach out to the young people and women who are out on the streets, that there is a solution, that if we want to bring about a solution, first we have to maintain peace, that this violence is not going to bring about anything, that we can talk about every issue, right? Once we are once we sit down together and have a dialogue, right? And
but
that message,
sorry, you joined me after because there was a lot of disruption. But how can there be a conversation? And on this, I would just like to get Dr. Pauting Haukip. The peace committee is a non-starter. It's a very good point raised by Mr. Yenkhom Jalangamba about the conversation must happen, but the peace committee is a non-starter. No one is talking about peace committee. Union government made a peace committee, everyone has walked out of it and there is complete silence. I mean to say, there is no bite or there is no statement that, we'll try to get people together. It just surprises me.
Yeah, the peace committee, which was set up by the central government, as has been done by many, and including many of us, we believe that it is a non-starter. For obvious reasons that these were not properly constituted. There were no prior deliberation, there were no engagement. These were what we call paperwork. So the people who are chosen, especially from the hillside and many, they have said that they've never been consulted. So there must be some sort of prior engagement of the sort to build confidence and build this peace committee. But if they are randomly selected and put on paper, it's just a paperwork. So that's why it's a non-starter, and I don't think that this is going to work. And another question is, what is this, what you call peace committee? When there is so much violence on the ground, when violence is at the peak and it is going higher and higher, so now the notion of having peace committee doesn't work. So peace committee can be started later on when the situation has normalized to a certain extent, if not to a very low extent or to a normal, at least there must be a certain degree of normalcy for any peace committee to be started. And as I said, this committee has to be fully consulted with the people and to be formed. And there are many responsible people who can make a difference in society. So we should involve such people in the society. And I'm not going to point out further on that. Now, coming to the question of what is violence and who are these penetrators of this violence, we so-called unidentified mob. Mob is an identified group, and as we know that there are no mobs on the other side, the hillside. The mob particularly pertains to the valley, and the mob is not a small mob; it's a large mob, uncontrollable mob. And I'm not a military expert. For any military expert, also, how do we deal with civilian mob? It's a very difficult question. Now, I have segregated this mob into two categories. Number one is women and children. As the general has said, women and children have been always used as a shield. And to my mind also, this is also the case, but women and children don't have such kind of ideology, kind of things. They were brought into the picture and for the purpose of executing some state program, they were brought into the picture. But the next group is more dangerous. This is where I want to stress a little bit and I want to wind it up. So the next group of mob is what the cookies, and many people have termed them as Arangway Tingals, and they what you call Meitei Liputs. So these are not ordinary mobs. Let us not misunderstand them. This has to be. We should not shy away from this real issue. I am not against Meiteis. I am fully with the Meiteis, the civilian, and most of these right-thinking people. I'm always for the Meiteis and general people. But these elements, so-called these two elements, have to be properly understood, if not investigated.
Okay, I think on now, you spoke about this. I think I need to get on this. 1 minute from Mr. Yengkom. Yengkom, you heard Dr. Pauthang Hauke?
Yes, I heard him, and I heard some of the early conversation as well. Now, what I was trying to talk about is not the peace committee which had been constituted. As we know, it's fallen apart even before it took off, right? So it's obviously badly designed, strategy in terms of selection, in terms of how to proceed, and so on and so forth. What I was hinting at, and with something I'm sure all my panel members and others would also agree, is that at one level, the role of the government has to be, of course, to bring down the violence, right? And create a conducive atmosphere for people to be able to come back, for people to feel safe, for people to be able to start, their education and all kinds of rehabilitation program. That is the job of the government to do, and there is no doubt about that. But on the question of, bringing back a sense of normalcy, we must also take note of the role that civil society organizations, women's groups, intellectuals can play, and that's what I was trying to suggest, that it is time, perhaps, already maybe too late for civil society organizations, women's groups, students' organizations, intellectuals, leaders in the community to come out and say that this cannot go on forever, right? And if there is a very strong message being sent, if there are elements within the society who are trying to sort of prolong this violence, I'm sure they will be isolated. I am convinced that they're not a majority. Maybe there are elements which are trying to provoke the people, which are trying to create this into a protracted conflict. But if they see that a lot of these organizations and very eminent leaders are coming out for peace, that they want to create a conducive atmosphere for people to come back to normal life, then they will not be able to carry out what they're carrying out.
Okay.
The last point, the last point that I want to also talk about is perhaps for that to happen, it may not just be the two groups, like the Métis and the Cookies, but I think for other civil society groups, human rights organizations, women's groups, who are not necessarily from Manipur, but also from other parts of the region as well as from different parts of the country, they will have to sing in India, in a democratic country, that it is also their responsibility to step in and say that we must try and bring about normalcy in Manipur.
Okay.
And that I haven't seen happening, from the media organizations or also from the civil society.
But let me tell you, News9 has been running this program for last 42 days. Every day at 11 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. with people from Manipur, as a commitment that we will continue this program till situation normalizes. Wagis.
I have just a quick question to Dr. Tanglal Hawkip, because everybody was talking about how the onus is on the center to restore peace. My question is that it looks like on the ground, none of the local legislators want to get into this because they have their own community interest to take care of. Is that the case? Because even when it comes to the peace committee, nobody wants to stick out their neck first to say that it's time to end this. Because after some time, when peace is restored, they'll have to go back for the votes, and then again they will be seen by the community whether they represented the community interest or not. That is the fear that is stopping any of them to take concrete action on the ground, and that is what is in fact leading to whatever initiatives done by the center not having an effect on the ground. Is this the fact?
Political scientists see this violence as an organized riot system, and in this system, who benefits out of this violence? We have to identify. Only after identifying who benefits politically or economically, then we can solve this situation. So the people, the common people out of this violence, they are the sufferer. They are, the people whose houses have been razed to the ground. So we have to identify who started it, who gained from this violence, who wants to remain in power despite, all houses, in the valley surrounding, the hills has been raised. So we have to look into this, riot system very carefully, and unless we pinpoint the people who are responsible for this, people who are inciting this violence, people who are involved in this, then we cannot bring this violence into, a standstill. So all peace committees would fail because, if these perpetrators, if these people who are involved in this violence are in that, list, how can peace be, initiated when
Okay.
there is violence still going on? I agree with my colleague Dr. Pautham also that you cannot start peace dialogue when there is escalation of violence in the state. So we should look into this system, how it originated, who are responsible for it. Unless those people are brought to justice, then we can't bring down this violence into a standstill.
Okay, okay, and I would add to this by saying that today is a different day. For the first time, the spotlight has been put on Biren Singh. General Meston, very quickly, do you think that the president rule is a solution or just a step for reorganizing things?
There is really no quick fix solution. The first solution is, I think the people, they have to be addressed by the local system over there. I think someone brought it out very clearly. We don't see the elected people moving around. They are the ones. See, after all, the political narrative has only brought about this. The political narrative by some vested interest has brought this situation and given it in a very different color of ethnic conflict. They are the only ones who have to resolve it. Till the time they have vested interest, this will not get resolved. Point two is, now, is the president's rule the answer? No, first let's make attempt. See, I think the Home Minister did attempt to make this peace committee, but I think the way it has happened and constituted the unified command, I think both have failed, because unified command also rightly pointed out by one of the speakers, because they have the authority now on ground. And Mr. Kuldeep or whoever is, I think on ground we are seeing the violence continues unabated. So what next? The what next is that we need to.
Okay.
We need to probably have a parliamentary or a inter-political delegation which needs to go over there from all parties, duly composed of all parties, matured people. I think very good point brought out was, we should not have people who have a hatred background, perpetrators of hatred, because there are a lot of politicians in all parties who only talk about hatred. People who are mature, who are true nationalists, not in terms of just a pseudo-nationalist, who are true nationalists, who mean good for the country. They need to be incorporated. Some people from the defense. I'll tell you, now we are continuously talking about peace. My 40 years in the Indian Army, and I've been abroad also in some countries, Rwanda and Afghanistan. As a soldier, you are the government representative 24/7. The soldiers are the people who are with the people 24/7. At times I've seen, even in Kashmir, I did not see the local administration there, because those areas are so remote, including in Manipur. There are such remote areas. Who goes there? The army people are there. So we, the army people, are also very, very good. We know the terrain, we know the people, we know the culture. So some of the people from the defense services, who again I speak, they should have a very high integrity.
Okay.
They should be unbiased.
I think
So
that's a very good point. And again, I would say, General Meston, I too have been to Afghanistan, from Mazar-e-Sharif to Ghazni. Had the opportunity to be there, first embedded with the US forces, and then on political visits, as part of those journalists who had the opportunity to go to Jalalabad and other areas. But nonetheless, yes, it should be more diverse. This is a key point. The peace committee should be reconstituted. It should be more diverse. It should have more people from different walks of life. And I would say that if peace needs to be ensured, some political region in Manipur is in order of the day. So thank you so much for joining me in this special broadcast. Thank you all of you for making time. Thank you.
If you're decriminalizing a same-sex relationship, I think there's no point of stopping for same-sex marriage.
It is an institution, and the marriage is always between men and women. It can't be between two men or two women.
Since the Supreme Court had decriminalized homosexuality, which means that this society can accept sex, but it cannot accept love.
You think that marriage will solve everything. It will not.
I think a lot of the discomfort and phobia comes from the fact that people haven't seen same-sex relationships.
We still are denying people